In this video, I'll continue to add more detail to the wall section. I'm going to move down to the level 2 detail. So we already have this insulation here. One thing that we're going to add in this little gap is the smoke seal and fire safing. Now, we could use the graphic associated with the rigid insulation, but it might be better to change the graphic just so it's clear that there's a change in materials. So I'll just simply do this with a series of lines. Under the detail lines, I'm going to make this out of thin lines, and I'll use a graphic similar to the one that's used in the textbook, and I'll just make a series of, see how that looks. That's perhaps a little bit too closely spaced for the scale of the detail that we're doing here. So probably about 1/2 inch copy, 0.5 inches. And just keep going down until you've kind of filled that space between the metal deck and the insulation behind the spandrel panel. And one more. Okay, now at the upper level, level 3, I had added this extension for to support the edge of the metal decking. I just need to do the same thing here. I'll try to copy this and save myself a little bit of time. Control V. Did it go? I don't see it. Not sure where it copied to. Oh, there we go. Okay. And then let's move it up. So it is at the top of that cord, and continue the one line a little bit further. Okay. Like that, we should have, on the upper level, we have rigid insulation, but here we have this layer of decking and concrete slab. So we'll bring in the graphic for this that we used in the others for the welded wire mesh. So hidden 3/32 -3 is what I'm going to use. I'm going to make a detail line here. And then I'm going to move it up. Let's try 1.5 inches. It's a little high. Let's move it down 0.25 inches. It'll be roughly centered. Well, I don't know why it didn't come in as that. Came in as a thin line. I'm going to change it to hidden 3/32. I'm going to pull it away from a little bit from the edge. So next I'm going to draw the angle that's basically attaching the curtain wall or securing the curtain wall. Let me go back to the textbook detail. So it says here bent steel plate. We'll use instead just a more traditional angle to construct this detail. So load family, and let's put in here angle, and we can use one of these angle shapes here. So I've check marked it, and I'm going to load it. Now there'll be a whole bunch of sizes to choose from. At the top is the biggest one, so I'm going to scroll down to perhaps we will try a 3x3. Doesn't need to be super hefty. We'll try this 3x3 by 1/4. Click on OK. And go to annotate and components, and there is the angle. So I'm just going to place it here on the underside of the flange, and then what I'll do is just with line work, draw in something that sort of resembles an angle that then will attach back to the curtain wall frame. So with my detail lines, I can just begin to construct a few here. So let's move this one down 0.5 inches and copy this one 2 inches down. I'll erase that top one in a minute. Get rid of that. And let's see here. Let's do another detail line from here to here. So what's happening is it's like two angles back to back. And then they're going to extend some distance into the frame here. I'm going to switch line types because I'm passing through this rigid insulation. I'll go to a hidden 1/16 2. Draw my line here, maybe 2.5 inches. But I have a lighter line than that one. Doesn't look like it. Okay, we're going to copy that one from here to here. And then annotate detail line one from here to here. Okay, so I really need to generate another line type for that detail, and I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to manage, just something we had done previously, but perhaps a little review at this point. Additional settings, line weights, not line weights, line types, line styles rather. Expand this. Let's see here, one of these that I had made hidden, these are the new ones. I'm going to create a copy of this one, new, name it here. Hidden 1/16-1. Okay. And this one will be hidden 1/16. It will have a line type of 1 of 1 line. Okay. And now let's take this one and see if it's in there. There it is. So that will read a little bit more consistently. This last one. Okay, now we really want to indicate some kind of attachment to these two. So I'm not going to do on the detail, it shows a a set of 2 bolts with nuts in here, and I'll show one. Let's see here, let's go to annotate and detail, and I'll make a rectangle here. This line type is going to be in, and I'm just going to sort of suggest there's some kind of fastener on both sides here. Should have done this one out of a region. Let's do that properly. So the line beyond is hidden. It's going to be solid white with thin lines, and it will go from here. A rectangle from here to here. Check mark. Okay, so now we have an angle here and then another kind of clip angle that then attaches to the vertical part of the mullion. This might be something to save as a group so I can copy it more easily. Let's see, make a window around it. No. Detail group, create group, group number. We're going to call this curtain wall. anchor and bracket. And we'll make it a detail group. Say okay. And see, will let me select these things. No, I should have done it while I was in it. You've chosen to cancel editing group. Canceling cannot be done. Make sure you want to, yes. Okay, we're going to do this a different way. I've selected it, annotate, detail group, create group, open in group editor. And let's try this again. Curtain wall. Anchor and bracket, or angle and bracket, maybe would be better. Angle and bracket. Yep. Okay, and then finish. Yes, better. Okay, so you can do it after you've already drawn it in the main drawing. Control C. Let's bring another one up here and move it into place. There. Okay. The last detail components that we'll be adding here, you can imagine this building is just the exterior shell, that we're not concerned about the interior wall finishes or the ceilings and things like that. We're just going to focus on the curtain wall and the structure. So we have a little bit more that we need to do down here. One thing that you'll notice is that the curtain wall is kind of cantilevering out here. We want to bring the slab over a little bit further so that there's something for it to bear on. So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to edit the boundary. And if we bring it out another 4 inches, we should be fine. Edit boundary, level 1, open in view, and just go around and click on these lines and move them all the way around 4 inches out. With a check mark. And let's go back to our detail. Okay, so there it is. And this grade beam here, it was drawn as a 16 by 24. It is serving as a kind of, it's in line with the columns here. There is further down the way a pier that the column is sitting on. Let's go to the wireframe and take a look at that. So similar to how you had done before, we want these to show. So if you're using the topography and you figured out how to hide or, reveal things beyond, use that technique. You could also modify this with a region. There should be something that has the earth tone here, and you could do that as a region. Either way is fine. What I'm going to do is go to view, and I'm going to say show hidden lines. Now you need to do this while you're in wireframe, just so you can see what's going on. It's going to ask me first pick the element to show lines behind. So I'll pick my topography, and then it's going to say pick what you want to show. So now when I go back to my hidden line type, I can see now that we have these piers are showing up. I also want to see the column as it's coming down and resting on top of that pier. So I'm going to use the same process, view, show hidden lines, pick let me turn the wireframe back on, pick the grade beam, and then the column, and then turn off the wireframe, move it to hidden, and now I can see the dashed lines that show that beam me on. Okay, so now we have this sort of situation where the grade beam is, it's where it needs to be for the column, and it's roughly bearing on top of these piles here. But I have this cantilever, and I think the better detail would be to just expand the grade beam over to the edge. So in other words, to move it over or make it 4 inches wider, but leave this portion bearing. So what I'm going to do is actually create a copy of this. I'm going to duplicate it. It's going to be 20 by 24, and say okay. And I'll just change this to an 8 ply. Okay. And I'm going to move it over. So it's going to be off center on the pier, but at least it will provide better condition for that curtain wall above. All right, so that's one thing we need to do. We're also going to add a welded wire mesh and the gravel and some of the other things that fall underneath this one. So I'm going to go and get those elements and bring them into this detail. So I'm in the precast wall section detail, and I'm going to copy. I can only get this one. Yeah, those 3 elements, and then I'm going over to the steel section, and I'm going to cut and paste those in here. I may have to sort of shift things around a little bit. That up a bit. Pull this over. Extend this edge here. Okay, now for my grade beam, I'm going to go back to that precast wall section detail, and I'm going to make a window around this cage here and go back to my walls, my steel section, and paste it in there. Maybe I'll bring it down a little bit, place it in the upper right corner, and then I'll kind of modify it so that it's within the grade beam. And like some of the other things that we've drawn, we're just kind of showing a possible way that these could be built, but this would go through a whole process with your design team. Okay, so now we have some work from the foundation done, and the last part of this wall section, at least in terms of the detailing, is to illustrate a condition below that bottom mullion. For the line weight of these mullions, to change that, you would go to Manage, Object Styles, and under Curtain Wall Mullions, the cut is set to 3. I'm going to just drop it down to 1. I don't need to see those as heavy lines, and say okay. All right. So again, this bottom, is intended to receive another piece of glass, but this would have a closure component in it. All right. Now, what are we going to show in here? We're going to indicate kind of a subsill for this part that the mullion would then attach to, and it would help it, you kind of want to leave it lifted up above the slab. You don't want this aluminum touching the slab. So we're going to create that separation with that detail. So I'm going to show a kind of simplified detail here, using basically detail lines. So I'll draw a line up to about the midpoint here, and then this one, I'm going to move it over, 0.125, 1/8 of an inch, bring this down, maybe 1.5 inches. Now let's bring it down farther and do another detail line here and pull it across. And basically what's going to be happening in this area is that there's, a system in place for anchoring it to the slab, but also to allow for water to drain out this piece. So it depends on the manufacturer of this. They're all going to have slightly different profiles. But basically that's what's happening in this section right here. And I'll just show something that suggests there's some closure there. Now below this, I'm going to show something referred to as a shim. And we'll come in just a little bit here. And it doesn't, you're showing it just to kind of conceptually illustrate how this is going to be assembled. And I'll come over, 4 inches, 4 3/4, something like that. And I'm going to draw a line that indicates that it's not continuous. If it was a continuous, like it ran the whole way, it would be an X. And I'll also show in this little gap here, a sealant and backer rod joint. So under annotate detail line, let's see, let's make this an ellipse. So my midpoint is here and make it about that long and then give it a little bit more height. And then I'm going to move this over a little bit further. Again, you can see I'm not doing this with a great deal of precision here. I just want to sort of suggest the intent. Okay, this did not, let's save the project. This would be a good time for you to save. And finish up with this little detail. Okay, so this is the backer rod, and I'm still not happy with the way it is positioned here. Okay, the other thing that I need to show is the sealant. So I'm going to use an arc for this. Let's see here, a start and radius. So let's see, I'm not sure if it's counterclockwise or what direction it goes. There we go, it works. And then I'll make a copy of this. 1 to 5 inches. Okay, so this is again sealant, and the backer rod is this. It's called a rod, but it's really kind of a squishy kind of material that fits and fills the gap. Okay, so that takes care of all of the graphics for this detail. The last part of this is to show some notations for this wall section. Before adding the text to this, we'll be adding a few details to the remaining details on the sheet. Many of this stuff, these things will be kind of copied from elsewhere, so hopefully it won't take too long to do that part. We'll pick up with that in the next video.